This video is the end product of a 100-day experiment spanning 500 hours of live streaming, which generated 56 million minutes of content watched, 416,000 unique people joined, and around 750,000 chat messages were sent. And I did this experiment because I wanted to understand the live streaming world better. You see, this is the most in-demand job for a majority of school children almost worldwide. In the 80s, it was rock star. In the 90s, it was footballer or movie star. Early 2000s had the rise of the reality TV star, and the 2010s saw the start of the online media saga. And now the most desired job is simply influencer. Now, I can answer questions about YouTube all day long, but when someone asks me about live streaming, specifically Twitch, I am just far less knowledgeable. And as a former teacher, I used to tell my students if they ever asked me something I couldn't answer, I would do my best to go away, learn it, and then report back to them so we could both grow together. So I thought, why don't I just do that here? I decided I would finish whatever YouTube projects I was working on at the time, and then I would spend the next 100 days focused entirely on live streaming, either doing it or researching it. I would chronicle the highs and lows of that 100-day journey, and this is that chronicle. I'll cover the mental side of streaming, the relationship with the audience and with other content creators, and the benefits and downsides of being a champion of a game or a cultural ideology. I'll look at why people watch streams at all, how this has changed me as an individual and as a content creator. If you're thinking about streaming full-time, I hope this video helps answer some questions you may have or prepare you for the challenges you may face. And if you're not thinking of doing that, I hope this is a whelming 90 minutes of background noise. So let's start at the very beginning. Grab a drink and put this on your second monitor or phone while you're doing other stuff. We're going to be here a while. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and everyone who subscribed on Twitch over the last 4 months, all 6,500 of you. More information on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. On the 2nd of February 2026, I uploaded the video Why Does This Keep Happening to my main YouTube channel Josh Strife Hayes. My second channel, Josh Strife Plays, covers mostly single-player games with a lean toward classic RPGs. By all metrics, these are two very successful YouTube channels. All I needed to do is keep creating the content for both of them, giving the audience of each what they want, and everything would be fine. If it ain't broke, fix it till it is. So you'll notice there's an almost 3 to 4 month gap on both of these channels with no content. This video is why. I see modern content creation as broadly split between 3 main disciplines: fast-paced, short-form content served by sites like TikTok or Instagram, long-form scripted, edited content, which is usually found on YouTube, and live streaming with sites like Twitch, Kick, or Rumble. Each discipline serves different audiences. TikTok's short-form audience tend to be younger. Millennials love multi-hour-long video essays on games they'll never play. Live streams are split between both, depending on the vibe of the stream and the connection to either the game, the streamer, or the situation. Now, I'm not a short-form creator. I have no interest in making that type of content. I do long-form scripted and edited videos, but before doing YouTube full-time, I was a theatre actor, and before that, I was a drama teacher, and both these backgrounds could work well with live streaming, interaction, and improvisation. But as a creator, I'm aware that audience demands change, trends come and go, advertising revenue is volatile, and while I have no intention of stopping my work with either channel, no channel lasts forever. So, January 2026, New Year's resolution. I decided to dedicate 100 days, 3.5 months to full-time live streaming. I didn't tell anyone I was doing this because doing so would defeat the purpose. If people know there is an end point to an experiment, they prepare for the end point and they don't join. I needed genuine reactions. So welcome, I'm Josh Strife Hayes. I Twitch streamed full-time for 100 days. Was it worth it? Let's find out. Let's start with a really strong disclaimer to repeat something from the intro. This video isn't a rant or a complaint. I'm going to cover the negatives and positives of everything that I experienced. I want this to be an honest analysis of my 100 days, the good and the bad. And the one thing you'll quickly come to discover if you do live stream as a job is complaining about anything to do with streaming will be met with people telling you to stop complaining because you have a dream job and you need to count your blessings. But I think it's important to remember that everyone, no matter who they are, will have down days, and even dream jobs can have nightmare moments. And I think we have a responsibility to the next generation of content creators, influencers, streamers, or video makers to say, look, the job is fantastic and has some incredible upsides, but you are going to face downsides, and it's important that you are prepared for those. If we're comparing the Twitch experiment to YouTube, then we need to know how I do YouTube. I'll sit in my room and play a video game, recording all of the footage of that and taking voice notes as I go. Then I'll turn those voice notes into a script, record the voiceover of the script, then sit and edit all of the footage I've got to match up with the script. As anyone who's made a long-form video knows, it's a remarkably time-consuming experience. Then I render the video, watch it, fix mistakes, render again, make a thumbnail, upload, done, move on to the next one. But the human contact during this process is basically zero. And while alone time is important for all of us, I started to feel this widening chasm between me and you, who I was actually making videos for. This brings up an irony. I could make content faster if I had less contact with the people the content was actually made for. YouTube output actually benefits from a distance from creator to audience. But live streaming is the opposite. You're actively trying to include as many people as possible in the process. You need to be watched while working, so that performer-audience connection isn't just encouraged, it's mandatory. It actually is the thing many people are watching for. With YouTube, the end content matters more than the process. With live streaming, the process is the content that matters. YouTube is film and TV, Twitch is live theatre. So in my mind, this 100-day experiment would not only gather data based on viewers, subscribers, watch times, sponsorship opportunities and all that jazz, but it would also allow me to reconnect with you. And one of the earliest things I learned was the YouTube audience and the Twitch audience are very different. But let's start with two basic questions. Why do people watch YouTube, and why do they watch Twitch? And in asking these, I realized the majority of people don't actually watch either of them. They listen to them while doing other things. There's an old saying when it comes to creating visual performance: show, don't tell. And I've used this mantra to critique games, films, and TV shows because I agree with it. If you want a player or viewer to fear a character, don't tell them how scary they are. Show them doing something terrifying. Let the viewer understand the reality of your universe or game or story through witnessing an action in it and letting them have a real reaction to it, not just telling them what their reaction should be. However, showing and not telling requires the audience to actually pay attention when they are shown. So the new writing mantra seems to be show, tell again, flashback to remind, have an episode recap at the start and at the end, then bring in a brand new character to recap the entire plot just for those who weren't listening. If you've ever wondered why shows like Stranger Things or later seasons of Reacher or The Boys seem so focused on constantly reminding the audience what's going on, as if they weren't even watching, it's because most of the audience weren't even watching. But how does this apply to streaming? Because Twitch isn't something solely focused on by most viewers, it ends up being used as more of a digital body doubling service, virtual parallel play. If you are playing a game, there's a nice sense of community to watch a stream of someone playing the same game. It'll make you laugh if they make the same mistakes that you do, and maybe you can share a tip or a trick you've discovered while playing. And you value the live connection without feeling constrained to actually focus on it. Very few people are watching Twitch while doing nothing else. Twitch is background ambience. I'm willing to bet most of you aren't watching this video actively so much as listening to it while you do whatever else you're doing, or it's playing in the background. Sometimes content isn't there to be the only thing someone focuses on, it's there to fill in the gaps in their attention or entertainment desires, not served by whatever else they're doing. And as a streamer, you need to accept that part of your appeal to a large part of the audience is to be entertaining enough to have on in the background, but not so entertaining that they need to focus on you or miss vital information later. So when these 100 days were drawing to a close, I spoke about this experiment on stream, and that got clipped and added to the Josh Drive Sage channel. And of all the comments, I saw one sentiment repeated. People were happy that I was returning to edited videos because they could not understand the appeal of a Twitch stream. So I decided to analyze that. Why do people watch live streams? After watching hundreds of streams while streaming myself, I think I found 6 key pillars of successful streaming. Now, most viewers will value aspects of all 6, and all streamers are doing multiple of these to a different degree, but broadly speaking, I think people watch streams for these 6 reasons, and they all have upsides and downsides based on the community that they can create. 1. High-skill gameplay. If you're a world-class player, speedrunner, guide writer, theory crafter, anyone who's great at the game, people will watch you to see you be great. These viewers are here for the mechanical gameplay. You don't need to explain what you're doing to them because they will already know.
They just want to see it being done well. These viewers will watch, for example, tournament-level fighting games in a totally different way to me. I don't know why certain combos are impressive, I just know that they are impressive. Your viewers, however, will know exactly why they're impressive. These streams can often be quieter. In fact, audience interaction can be at a minimum because the gameplay is the point. The strength of being this streamer is you're only competing for viewers with other people playing at your level, which will be a very small number of people. The downside is you're also limiting your appeal to players who have the technical knowledge to be entertained by high-level gameplay alone, which is a very small percentage of a game's player base. Plus, when someone new comes along and is better than you, that they will eventually do, the audience will go to them, because they were there for the skill. There's less loyalty to the individual streamer. 2. Game-agnostic entertainment or sex appeal. Doesn't matter what the streamer is playing, you're not there for the game, you're watching them because they are funny or sexy. Saying they're entertaining is too broad. This streaming pillar is narrowed in my mind to apolitical vibes, good presenting skills, good chat interaction, and good looks. Finding success as this type of streamer is a bit harder in the early stages because you're not standing out for any of your gameplay skill, and if you do choose to stick with one game, you're limiting your audience reach, so you tend to move from game to game, but the constant movement means you never fully settle in a community. The strength of this as a streamer, however, is you are the product and the audience is there for you. The downside of this is the risk of dangerous parasocial attachments forming quicker because you're building that connection on purpose to a degree, and then if there's ever a day you don't look good or feel funny, you need to force the performance because the audience are also aware of small changes in your appearance or your style. If you are the content, discussion about the content becomes discussion of you, and if you're not mentally able to deal with that, it becomes overwhelming. We'll look into this later in the mental health aspect of streaming. 3. You're independently famous outside of Twitch. Now this is a really interesting one. People will tune in to watch famous people stream just because they're famous. A politician playing Fortnite, a rapper playing old school RuneScape, Jack Black playing whatever he feels like. If someone said The Rock was doing a 30-minute Fall Guys stream, you can guarantee people would watch it. These streams are interesting to me because the celebrity is bringing their outside fan base onto Twitch, but they don't need to understand the entertainment medium of streaming. With live streaming, you need to be interacting with the audience constantly while playing a game, and that's not something a lot of these big famous people do all that often. In fact, the most successful non-streamer focused performers I've seen are usually the ones with live stage improv backgrounds. A fun personal example was when John Robertson of the Dark Room fame and I played Borderlands 4 together and had a great time.
We're live, baby. Okay. And also, like, what do you call your fans there, Josh?
What do I call my fans? Parasocial, normally.
Oh, that's fucking tickled me.
The strength of this pillar is, if you're famous, people will watch you do anything. And I benefit from that too, to an extent, because a lot of my Twitch audience find me from YouTube, and while Twitch and YouTube seem like two sides of the same coin, it's still an outside audience. The downside of these streams is it can feel like a gimmick. If you know the celebrity isn't going to stream again, or even care about the culture of streaming, there's a lot of soulless energy that screams marketing stunt. 4. Giveaways and drops. People will watch your stream if you promise to give them things. Raffles, lotteries, free Robux, skins, Steam gift cards, VIP status, whatever it is. Doesn't even matter if it's against the live streaming platform's terms of service. Hell, it could probably be against the law of whatever country you're streaming in. People will watch you if they benefit. Now, some games do Twitch drops. If you're watching a stream, you get a reward in the game. And that's fine, because that's not really there for the streamer, that's just there for the game. They're less egregious, but it's still an audience acquisition method through giving things away. The benefit of doing this as a streamer is it works and it's really easy. People love seeing the word giveaway in the title, and they will wait for ages, especially if you're promising things people actually want. The downside, bots designed to search for the keyword like giveaway, drop, or free stuff. This is only sustainable as a business model if you keep constantly doing it. Pillar number 5, confirmation bias and belonging. This is probably the most divisive streaming angle. Work out what your audience want to hear and then say it. Reinforce their political stances, agree with their social ideology, confirm whatever bias they already hold. When you hear about a political drama take or a social commentary bit from a streamer that's hit the mainstream news, it's usually because of this pillar of streaming. Now, the benefit to this style of streaming is it builds intense viewer loyalty because you become their guy. You are a champion of the social, political, or ideological cause the viewer cares deeply about. And they'll support you because you outwardly support them. You are willing to ostracize large sections of viewership because that ostracization is the signal to your loyal supporters that you are their champion. The downside of this type of streaming is constant reinforcement of beliefs can lead to a downward spiral where you slowly begin to appeal to a more extreme element of society. It locks you into a persona and makes changing your mind or airing any dissenting positions from the accepted groupthink dangerous, because your audience is there because they agree with you, and if they stop agreeing with you, they stop watching. And the sixth and final pillar is also the most boring. You have early access or exclusive access to a game, and the audience are watching you to do research on the game before buying it. They want to see the gameplay, the graphics, hear your thoughts critically on how it plays, and decide if it's worth their time. This is why so many streamers jump on new games or early access. The benefits of this are you are joining a gold rush of streamers every time a new game comes out to gather up new viewers who may not discover you any other way. And if the game does end up becoming successful, if you're there as an early adopter, you can rise to fame along with it. We've seen lots of streamers main one game when it's not popular, the game blows up, and then that shoots the streamer into superstardom, like Ninja with Fortnite. The downside is if the game isn't successful, any viewers gained from it may leave unless they enjoy the stream for other reasons, and any time spent trying to build a community in a game which ultimately dies is time that you could have spent building up a community in another more established game.
So, good gameplay, funny chat and sex appeal, fame and fanbase, giveaways and drops, confirmation bias and validation, and new game interest. The 6 pillars of streaming, in my humble opinion. Now, the interesting thing is all of these pillars contribute to the ongoing community of the streamer, and the focus of each pillar affects the community that streamer will end up with. Now, I think the pillar with the broadest general appeal is confirmation bias and validation, because you can wander into ideological or political territory, and there are simply more people in the world who want to have their ideological beliefs confirmed repeatedly at them by a famous person than there are people who care deeply about being really good at a video game. But one thing I have learned about live streaming is that while this is all very popular in a bubble, it is still nowhere near mainstream.
Viewers who are more enfranchised in the online content world often see content platforms as equal. If your personal rotation of digital media is YouTube, Twitch, Kick, Insta, TikTok, or Twitter, you're going to assume most other people interact with all of the others. And to this end, Twitch and YouTube are often discussed by people who use them as two sides of the same coin, equal but different. And this isn't even close to true. YouTube's user base and daily viewers absolutely dominate Twitch. YouTube is mainstream. Twitch, while still the most popular live streaming app, is not mainstream in the same way. Even at gaming conventions or events where people will know about gaming culture and they will know about Twitch, they will still not always use it, while almost everyone will have watched a YouTube video. Think of it like this. The vast amount of people who engage with any specific media thing, be it a TV show, film, listen to a band, or play a video game, only engage with that on a surface level. They watch the show, they listen to the music, they play the game. And they may enjoy doing these things, and they can call themselves a fan of the product, but the enjoyment is of the product, and that's it. If you join a forum to discuss a TV show you've seen, if you go and see a band in concert, if you start watching meta guides about a video game or reading the wiki, you are actually far more invested in that thing than the average enjoyer.
I asked a few community manager friends of mine if they could share some numbers on fanbase interaction within their game, and the numbers they all shared matched up with something called the Pareto Principle, which is one of my favorite mathematical constants. The Pareto Principle is a weird 80-20 split which pops up again and again in both natural and man-made systems. 80% of an output is caused by 20% of an input and vice versa. On average, 20% of a business's customers will make up 80% of their revenue. 20% of your carpet at home gets walked on 80% of the time compared to the rest. If you fix the 20% most commonly reported problems in any system, you'll likely see an 80% reduction in problem reports. It's a really odd constant, and it applies here. Roughly 20% of a game's player base actively engage with the community beyond just playing the game. And of those people, 20% again are then responsible for 80% of the Wikipedia entries on the game. And as the engagement goes further, it keeps subdividing down in this 80-20 split. So imagine a game has, for ease of numbers, 10,000 players. On average, only 2,000 of those 10,000 are actively engaged in the game's community on a deeper level, like grinding for all the achievements, or watching YouTube videos, or reading the wiki. That's what I consider to be the first filter. Now, this might seem absurd to hardcore, frequently online people, because we get convinced that our bubble is representative of the general population. But it's not. I work in the MMORPG genre mostly, and everyone I speak to assumes everyone else is a hardcore gamer, looking up their rotations, min-maxing, reading guides, reading the patch notes, because that's what they do. We come to see those around us as the average, but if you step back and take gaming as a whole, you'll be reminded the MMORPG genre is still an extremely small part. In fact, some people who play video games won't even know what the acronym MMORPG means. Then realize that Twitch is a niche viewing experience itself, and you're stacking filters. It's a niche within a niche. So if we go back to the example of 10,000 total players reducing down to 2,000 enfranchised, understand that of those 2,000, a smaller percentage again, on average around 20%, will actively seek out live streams of a game, so around 400 people. Then consider those 400 people are going to be spread around the world and not all active at the same time or speak the same language, and your live stream only appeals to a small section of them. Filters within filters. But let's say somehow you manage to magically capture all 400 of those hypothetical people as viewers at the same time. You do not now have a balanced, varied cross-section of that game's player base watching you. You instead have 400 of the more dedicated, invested players, and both the streamer and the audience often forget this. So as a streamer, this brings a strange risk. You've already filtered your viewers and thus your daily interaction of a game's player base to the more enfranchised side. You can then begin to assume anything your viewers complain about are complaints shared by the player base as a whole, when they might not be. You can see situations, either YouTube videos or Twitch streams, saying, everyone hates this, players are leaving in droves, they've destroyed this build, they ruined the game. And because you are existing and working daily within that filtered bubble, the microcosm of invested players, those issues become the issues of the game, the only ones you think matter. But if you were to step back and zoom out and look at the original 10,000 players we started with, almost 80% of those players wouldn't even be aware anything had changed at all, because they're not reading the patch notes or playing the meta or watching videos. They just turn the console or PC on, play the game for a bit, and then turn it off and go and do other stuff. If you're watching IRL live streams and talking to other fans of those streamers, you may assume that everyone in the world knows who those streamers are and care about the drama they're involved in, when they just don't. The vast majority of people in the world don't even know who the most famous streamers are. More people watch YouTube than Twitch, and a huge amount of the world doesn't know who Mr. Beast is. So you're streaming and engaging with a rather limited audience already, which can give you a warped view of what is normal, but then geography limits it even more. Consider time zones. If you're not streaming when someone is awake, they're not going to watch you. The day of the week and the time of the day matter hugely. We can see that weekends get way more viewers on average, and this makes sense. People are off work and school, but then you need to get specific on which demographic you want and what that market want. I know it seems a little soulless and corporate to reduce viewers down to market demographics, but when it comes to geography and money, you kinda have to. If you're streaming when it's 5 p.m. in London, when people are home from school and just finishing office jobs in the UK, it's midday in New York. So you'll be getting a UK and mainland Europe viewer base, but lacking on the Americas. But why does that matter? I once had a marketing agency approach me to sponsor a video and then do a sponsored stream, and they told me that the budget for my involvement in their campaign was $30,000. That's how much I would get paid if my viewer base was 60% or more USA based. However, because my viewer base is not 60% or more US based, because I stream at normal UK times and so capture a more European audience, that budget for my involvement dropped from $30,000 to $5,000, because the product they wanted to push was hyper-focused on the US market. And after knowing that, I had to ask myself, do I need to change my schedule to appeal to a different demographic? Now, I didn't end up going with the campaign, and I haven't ended up changing my schedule. I've kept my mainland Europe focus, but it was certainly an interesting thought, because as a content creator, your value to advertisers is not necessarily how you stream, it's who you give them access to as a demographic.
I know that no one wants to look at the business side of this because we all want to see it as friends hanging out and playing games, but if you're going to actually support yourself with streaming as a job and not just a hobby, you need to run your streams as a business, because they are. There are demographics which are simply more valuable to certain advertisers, and geographical location is one of the big ones. Viewers in Western countries usually have more disposable income and the currency is usually stronger, or at least more stable. Then you can break it down by time zones where major cities have just left work. So as a streamer, part of your business plan is to be streaming when the market share you want, or you think advertisers will want access to, is watching, and thus they become your audience. Now, this is not saying that European or Asian demographics have less value, just different value to different companies. And paying sponsors, of course, know this. YouTube, however, doesn't really have this problem. If you put a video out, people all over the world are going to watch it whenever it suits them. Now, as we know, clips of streams and entire unedited VODs can be uploaded to YouTube, but you're losing the live appeal of Twitch if you do that. This means hours spent working on a YouTube video can retain their value for your audience globally whenever the audience is ready, but hours spent live streaming actually have increased value for people who are able to join live, and advertisers know this. So one of the common questions I got during the whole thing was, why don't you just do YouTube and Twitch both full-time at the same time? Now, there's a reason you normally don't see people doing 8-hour Twitch streams and putting out multi-hour-long edited scripted videos, and it's because the time you'd spend doing one isn't really productive to the other. When I'm playing a game to review it for a YouTube video, I'm usually capturing the footage of that gameplay at a decent resolution and frame rate. I'm focused on the gameplay, and my attention is entirely spent on analyzing and critiquing the game so I can hopefully not miss anything important. When streaming, my screen has the game reduced in size, the live chat and the webcam overlay, and my attention is on the live audience. I'll talk about attention splitting in depth later because it's really important, but that brings up reaction content. Because the longer you spend on Twitch, the greater chance you'll come across it eventually. And this is honestly one of the few ways that you can full-time Twitch stream and put out scripted, researched, and edited high-quality videos. You can watch other people's videos, give your input live, then just re-upload the thing wholesale. Now, reaction content is a whole topic itself, and I'd recommend you watch Dark Viper AU's entire series breaking it down. I have a small appearance in the videos talking about the positives and negatives of this content, because I've benefited and suffered from it too. It's all in there. For now, let's get back to the 100 days Twitch streaming experiment. Both YouTube and Twitch, for all their differences, do reward consistency, and the audience want both quality and frequency, which can either mean making a video from scratch every few weeks to a month, or streaming for several hours on a given day. You can do one of these really well, or both of them worse.
But now we move on to your place within the streaming landscape if you do start to see a level of success, and how the game you choose or the style you choose to stream in can end up consuming you. Or, equally, it could end up with you representing it, and then all the qualities that go with it get imbued into you, both good and bad. For example, let's say you choose to stream an unknown, brand new game. A viewer comes in and you are, for whatever reason, even if you didn't mean to be, rude or obnoxious to that viewer. You haven't just affected that viewer's view of you, but also now of the game, because for the moment they were around, you were the representative of the game. You were the face of the player base, and your actions impact that player base as a whole. Now, equal and opposite, if you choose to stream a game which already has a reputation for political or sociological preferences because of the company that make it, then that gets imbued into you, and there will be viewers who believe you are, by way of streaming the game, endorsing the qualities of those who create it. There are enfranchised viewers, or people who spend a lot of time living in an online bubble, who see every action or interaction through the lens of a cultural or ideological war, and any action on your behalf will be seen as either an aggressive or defensive move in the global online battle of morals that they see every day as.
What ends up happening over time is the loudest or most popular streamers come to be the face of a certain game, like Ninja with Fortnite, and you get this symbiotic relationship between the most popular streamer of a game and the audience of that streamer and the hardcore player base of that game. And it's important to note that I'm not saying every single hardcore player or fan of Fortnite is a fan of Ninja or vice versa. But for people outside of the gaming bubble, their understanding of gaming culture comes from whatever is popular and what they see. So they see a huge amount of Fortnite merchandise, they see Ninja hosting the New Year's Eve celebrations, and they see one being referenced alongside the other constantly. So to the general public, the optics of games or genres become whichever representative, whichever content creator is the largest within that game or genre. Now, the benefit of this is the streamer will always have an audience and the game will always have a champion, but the risk is that the fall of one will have a knock-on effect on the other. If a game dies, its most popular streamer will see a reduction in views. If the streamer is caught up in controversy, the game now has a public relation issue to deal with. We have seen this play out time and time again with prominent popular content creators within a specific game or genre do something problematic, and then the game or genre have to put out a statement distancing themselves. This also means, as a streamer, people who dislike the game will instantly dislike you by association, and vice versa. Now, sometimes the streamer avoids a connection to a specific game, but instead pushes their personality. They are the loud, obnoxious one, or the calm, chilled one, and their audience becomes people who like that vibe. The game just acts as a framework to weave their personality and stream into. These would be your variety streamers. The strength here is the ability to pivot games and never get locked to one which limits your viewer base. The weakness is you never become the champion of one game, so if a game does suddenly see a huge success, you don't get to ride that as easily to the top. Which means, broadly speaking, you either become a representative champion of a game or genre, gaining the benefits and risking the downsides, or you become a personality unto yourself and tie your success to your own content. Both can bring a lot of viewers, but even that has issues. The primary one being how success will morph your relationship to the audience that have brought you that success. One of the more almost Lovecraftian processes you'll see happen in streaming is how viewers become a monolith, and your relationship to them, performer to audience, audience to performer, becomes almost one of worshipper and deity, but you are both of those positions. The streamer is worshipped but also needs the audience, so they worship them too. Communication devolves into call and response, and nuance is pushed out, and the original action of communication is replaced with only the reaction to what the communication could have been. That sounds weird, so let me explain. When you start streaming, statistically, you won't have anyone watching you. The number of zero-view streams on Twitch is huge. If you have more than 11 viewers consistently, you're already in the top 3% of Twitch. If you have more than 40 viewers, you're in the top 0.5% of Twitch channels, averaged by viewership alone. Now, at these viewing figures, you can still relate to each viewer as a person. These view numbers also allow you to have more intimate personal conversations, not about topic, but about energy and focus and personalized responses. You're talking to them as an individual, and they're talking to you as an individual, and some viewers love this type of stream. But as you get into the low hundreds of views, it begins to shift. The chat starts to move faster. And while you may still be able to pick out regular viewers' usernames, you start to get people who type and then you can't reply to, so they don't type again and they feel ignored. At this stage, you may still be able to see everyone in the stream as an individual viewer, there are just more of them. Conversations don't flow as easily, but they can still work, and you may need to scroll the chat back up if you miss a message while focusing on a hard bit of a game. But when you break the 1,000 viewer barrier, and then as you close in on 2,000 or 3,000, that personal connection begins to break down substantially. And while you may spot familiar usernames, you can no longer track everyone's different social handles. We've shot past the digital equivalent of Dunbar's number, and relationships are no longer personal and intimate, but more performer and audience. You can't really read long, detailed messages as well before the chat is pushed up and off the screen. So this is where communication goes from being personal to being performed. But I said Lovecraftian earlier, so to me, the Lovecraftian aspect of this is how individuals who are chatting begin to form into the entity simply known as chat. The collective singular, the monolith, individuals all adding to the wall of text which becomes chat, but no individual message takes priority over the vibes of the wall as a whole. Like a stadium full of people all singing the same song, you can't pick out any individual voice, so the crowd becomes a representation of everyone without actually being any one specific. Chat is everyone. Everyone is chat, but chat is also a singular being. They are legion. They are the Borg. At this stage, chat becomes a bored, childlike god, both there for the entertainment of you as a streamer, but also unknowingly totally powerful and able to change the direction of the stream, not as individuals, but as a collective. However, due to the speed the messages move, complexity has to give way to simplicity, and message quality is now replaced with quantity, and we enter what I call the L and W phase.
If the chat was mostly L's, while I didn't know exactly what I was doing wrong or which individual I had hurt, I knew I was losing the audience as a collective. More W's, I was on the right track. Keep going. Now, this is extremely reductive, almost insultingly so. It's cold and impersonal. But at a certain volume of messages, it's kind of inevitable. You are the captain of the streaming ship, and while you may not know every single sailor on the ship, if they're all screaming they're about to crash, turn the ship.
And this is what I see happen to a lot of large streamers. Once they're big enough, the viewers almost accept the metamorphosis from individual connection or communication with a streamer to audience members connected and communicating mostly with each other. This is where the single letter responses or emojis or icons or canned chat reigns supreme, because at this point, interact with the stream isn't about recognition, it's about being part of a movement. When something funny happens, you type lol or send an emote not because you need the streamer to see your specific input, but because the other viewers are going to see it, and you know that you're adding a drop of water to the tidal wave of lol that the streamer does see. And now they know that chat found that funny. If you've ever seen the film Megamind or The Matrix, you know how the small robots end up forming a massive face at the end as a representation of the collective as a single entity? That's what larger chats end up feeling like. And as a streamer, trying to talk to that size of chat in any kind of personal way is almost impossible.
Going off on a slight tangent here, but one of the more insidious ways that streaming mentality is creeping into gaming culture, especially of the younger generation, is it's actually changing how younger people play games, because people see streamers as playing a game in a way which makes content. It's engaging and interesting to an audience, and so younger gamers bring that energy into their own life and their own non-streamer games, either alone or with their mates. The over-the-top reacting, the shouting, the screaming, even saying, "Chat, are we cooked?" has become something kids say in real life, in classrooms. Teacher friends have told me that streaming culture with kids is popular enough that lots of young students are speaking out loud as if they are presenting whatever they're doing to an imaginary audience. Bo Burnham was right. The idea of everything must be performed all the time. Kids are focusing on engaging with an imagined chat more than just enjoying their own game.
Now, I pride myself on at least trying to be able to read individual messages and give personalized responses to individual viewers, even at several thousand viewers per stream. It's a lot of attention splitting, which is something important I'll cover soon, but the moment I start to see chat as this nameless entity, instead of engaged individuals, I try to step back, pick out messages and reply to people, to let people know, even if I can't name you, I can engage with you and reply to you. One risk you will face in talking to a lot of people every day is you'll talk to a lot of socially maladjusted, awkward, or straight-up cruel people. And the longer you engage, the more content and clips can be created, which in a way is a level of marketing. But the more you do this, the more you'll harm your own mental health, or harm the viewing experience. Remember, he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. For when you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. A famous saying by the Baldur's Gate 1 intro movie.
Hello, Editing Josh here. I said this video was going to be an honest reflection of my time streaming, so I think this bit matters. While making this video, the Josh Strife Says clip channel uploaded this clip titled "I Can't Do This Anymore." In the clip, I'm playing Darkest Dungeon, and in it, I lash out at a viewer in a really unfair and totally uncalled for way. Watching it back, I can see that my behavior was unacceptable. Frankly, I was a bit of a condescending dick. and I've left a pinned comment apologising and taking full responsibility for that. Now, I wanted to add this bit not as an excuse, but as an honest reflection of my own hubris. This happened toward the end of the 100-day experiment. I've been spending so much time every day engaging with people who were either asking repetitive questions or messaging in bad faith or deliberately trying to just be negative that it was changing me. And I didn't realize how much that constant negativity had been affecting my overall demeanor. I never wanted to assume the worst about anyone who joined chat, even if they did join with a bad attitude or a confrontational tone. And maybe this is naive of me, but I would try to talk to people and offer some common ground, even if I could tell we were going to disagree, even if those chats were mentally and emotionally draining. But I realized by this point, I'd been giving so much of my emotional and mental energy to difficult people without a break, I ended up lashing out at people who didn't deserve it because I saw them as having bad intentions even if they didn't. This was the moment for me that the abyss stared back. And I realized that no matter how strong I am, giving thousands of strangers access to my emotional state every day was turning me into somebody I didn't like anymore. The bitterness I was seeing in the worst examples of the internet was seeping into me, and I was becoming just as bitter. Darkest Dungeon was right. Overconfidence really is a slow and insidious killer. One of the biggest strengths about live streaming is the connection with the audience, but genuine connection comes with genuine risk, and you have to constantly balance the genuine level of emotional vulnerability you're willing to show, which shows the audience the real you, and a more rehearsed persona, what I call a hyper-real version of yourself, which is still based on you as a foundation and is entertaining, but isn't as emotionally open. To take these to the extremes, have you ever met someone who is too emotionally vulnerable? They feel intensely. Everything anyone says gets taken to heart, overanalyzed and thought about for hours, maybe even days. The description of thin-skinned would suit this person, even if it would be slightly offensive. But the positives about talking to them is you do know they're genuinely listening to you. On the opposite end, have you ever met someone who reacts with sarcasm for absolutely everything? They will turn any interaction into a joke. Nothing is serious or genuine. Any attempt at emotional connection is met with flippant dismissal, the one-liner. This is often because they're terrified of being emotionally vulnerable, and so they use these defense mechanisms to never let anyone in. Both of these people are equally draining to spend time around, and as a streamer, you have to bounce between being both of them to protect your own mental health. If you're streaming, you're going to experience both and have to balance both, because some of the audience will want that genuine emotional connection, and it can be really sweet, even restorative for both performer and audience to feel genuinely seen and understood. But other people are going to take advantage of any kindness that you show and use that to demand attention. And then if they get that attention, they'll derail the conversation into whatever benefits them. There may be conversations where someone annoying or irritating or honestly just lonely comes in, and part of you, and I know this is something I do, recognizes that in general, hurt people hurt people. And I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. I'm not claiming to be. But if I show a little kindness and engage a bit with these people who are clearly struggling, maybe someone who joins the stream with limited amounts of bad intentions or in bad faith will actually see they don't need to be that way here. They can find somewhere comfortable to be. They can fit in here. But anytime you spend engaging with these people, even if you have the best intentions, could potentially be harmful to the rest of your audience. Remember how the disruptive kid or the bullies back in school got all the teacher's attention and ended up ruining the class while the well-behaved kids got nothing and felt neglected? It's the same situation here. You end up with a kind of mercy to the wolf is cruelty to the sheep thing going on. And as much as you might want to save someone from themselves and try and show kindness, you don't want to show empathy at the cost of everyone else's understanding. As a streamer, you want to be emotionally available so the audience can see that you're human too, but dealing with so many people means that you'll need to periodically close yourself off and reassess who you engage with and for how long, to both keep the energy of the stream and your own mental health in check, because interacting with that many people every day will change you, whether you want it to or not. If you've worked in retail, you've probably heard the phrase, "Didn't scan? It must be free," so many times that you cringed at me even saying it here. Or asking a customer, "Anything else I can get you?" And they reply, "Yeah, the winning lottery numbers." Or even, "How about you?"
depending on how creepy the customer is. It's the same as cleaning and hearing someone say, "You missed a spot." Those interactions are nothing to the customer. They think they're being funny and forget them the moment they leave the shop. But to you, every instance is a tiny amount of psychic chip damage. Not enough to register as pain, but enough to slowly erode. Like a wave battering a rock face, or a stone breaker striking the hammer. The damage is being done, but people only notice when the cliff crumbles or the stone splits. Not understanding it wasn't any individual strike of the hammer that split the stone, but the collective action of all of them. The same is true when a streamer crashes out, and believe me, crash out you will. The choice you make is, do you want to do it on stream or off stream? Do you have the mental resilience to know it's time to turn the camera off and take a moment, or do you want to do it on stream because you know it's going to become a good marketing bit for you? It's inevitable that you will interact with people whose entire goal is to upset you. Adults with the mentality of children, or worse, the active cruelty of unhappy people. And the common advice is, well, just ignore it. But that works about as well as telling a kid to ignore the school bully, because you have to have noticed the behavior or read the message to know that it's something that you shouldn't have noticed and shouldn't have read. And reading the message, even if you don't take the sentiments to heart, even if you know it's something that doesn't matter, will still add a small amount of negativity to your day. And over time, the more energy that you keep giving to negative things, the more bitter you become. And thinking that you are immune to this is the fastest way to exposing yourself to far too much of it.
If you, as a viewer, leave a negative comment or send a negative message for whatever reason, maybe you were having a bad day, maybe you're just a bit unhappy, it doesn't even register as something that matters to you. You forget it instantly. It's a short scream into the void. But as a streamer, you're actually living and working inside the void that all the others are screaming into. And if you don't step away from it and mentally defragment every now and again, it will break you. This is why, despite many viewers asking me to stream my other hobbies, like building and painting Warhammer, or playing Magic the Gathering, or building and making cosplay, because they would love to watch me do it, or body double with me while they do it, I need those things to exist outside of content. Because once you start seeing your entire life as content, you can never switch off. You are human. You need downtime or you'll burn out.
This makes streaming, while again not the most difficult job in the world by far, rather mentally intense. You're acting as the teacher of a class full of anyone who wants to wander in and managing everyone's behavior. They say the community of a stream is an extension of the streamer. So if you let a few risque or offensive jokes slide at anyone's expense, while you're not saying you directly approve, you're actually showing approval by proxy of not stepping in and shutting the behavior down. The audience doesn't just see what you endorse, they see what you don't admonish. And just like the annoying kid in the school will hold a finger right next to you and say, "But I'm not actually technically touching you, so you can't get annoyed at me," chatters will see how far they can push the boundaries of what you do allow. And in doing so, the remaining community will mold itself around that. You get to show people what is acceptable and how you want to be treated, and they will treat you based on what you allow. Remember the famous saying, any community that gets its laughs by pretending to be idiots will eventually become flooded by actual idiots who mistakenly think they're in good company? So let's expand on a strange aspect, the idea of the hyper-real, a persona instead of a person, because if you do become successful, you become a streamer with a capital S. No longer a verb to describe what you do, but a noun to describe who you inherently are. And everything you do, both on and off the platform, is now content, and any choice you make which could become social or seen is on some level performative, because you are a brand. You are the product. You're not necessarily lying, but you're not being entirely yourself either. Take me. A few years ago, I started wearing white shirts and waistcoats on stream and in videos. They were comfortable, easy to find, it's not a complex style, but it became recognizable, and it morphed into a uniform, as Morrowind kept reminding me.
Where's your uniform?
Oh, that's gonna get real old real quick. Then I started holding my microphone by putting it in a mug to reference all those video essayists who hold it in strange ways. I even got featured in a video literally about why YouTubers hold microphones weird. This had two consequences. First, I could benefit from it. White shirt, waistcoat, and mugraphone. It became my thing. It became so recognizable within the community that U2s reached out to me and made me into a limited time plushie, wearing a white shirt and a waistcoat holding a mug. This wouldn't have happened unless I had a recognizable uniform. But the downside is you can't really change. And some of the latest streams I went with a quarter zip jumper or a Henley style shirt, and the messages were, why are you not dressed in a white shirt and a waistcoat? People saw me wearing different clothes, and the mental model they have of me, the persona they expected, was different to what they got, and their first response was to question it. Because people have an idea of what you are, and if you don't match up to that, they have to know why. Then you've got your social media attached. Twitter, Insta, TikTok. These become extensions of the stream persona. You're not using them as a social media as much anymore, but advertising media, marketing media. The point of these becomes driving engagement to monetized platforms like your Twitch or your Patreon. Because like it or not, people will see whatever you post on these social media platforms and then ask you about it on your Twitch or on your YouTube. Everything is now connected. Now, does this mean you're just acting and performing and lying? Well, no, not at all. It means there's a level of curation that is happening in an active way, in your presentation and in your delivery. Just how you wouldn't talk to your boss in the same way you'd talk to your best friend, or we act differently in a fancy restaurant or a water park or a nightclub. All of these places having different dress codes and behavioral expectations. And doing each of them individually is fine, but if you were to turn up to a restaurant in Speedos and start raving, you'd draw some attention and some questions. And this idea of a uniform and a customer service voice isn't unique to streaming at all. If you've worked in retail or hospitality, it's the same idea. You're expected to wear a uniform because the customers have a mental image of what somebody helping them needs to look like and sound like. The clientele have expectations, and you need to meet them.
Streaming becomes the same. You curate this digital space where you belong, then you place yourself in it as the nucleus that the audience and community is built around. And the audience you get value consistency, and marketing values recognizable motifs and brand loyalty. In entertainment, the audience say they want brand new experiences, but studies have shown this just isn't true. Sequels and reboots do way better than original stories in general. So what I believe is the audience wants something called familiar novelty, which is something they'd never seen before that they instantly understand. The excitement of the new with the comfort of the known. And your persona and looks become the known as your streams become the new. But this also creates a bit of an odd problem, which sounds incredibly arrogant until you've had to experience it yourself. As you succeed, more and more people will want to be your friend or hang out with you. People will message you and say, hey, if you're ever in this area, I'll buy you a drink, we'll have a chat. Or you'll get Discord or Twitter messages from viewers who talk to you like an old friend, like they've known you forever, despite the fact you've never met them. Because in their mind, the hundreds of hours they've spent with you on YouTube or Twitch is connection time. Now, this is orders of magnitude worse for female creators, but what it ends in is people want to be friends with the persona that you present, not the person you are. People don't know you. They know the version of you that entertains them. And whenever I'm at a convention or a gaming event, there's a level of energy I'm reserving to make sure I'm performing the character of Josh Strife Hayes as opposed to just being naturally me in any scenario. And if you've ever met me, you might be thinking, does that mean that I was lying to you? Think about it like this. If I meet 100 people and one of those interactions is negative, that's just a 1% negativity rate for me. I can live with that. But to that one person, that was the only thing they know of me. That was their entire interaction. That becomes their story. That becomes their memory. That becomes the Reddit post of I met Josh Strife Hayes and he was a dick. So if you meet lots of people, which you will do if you find success, you have to understand those people are coming to you with expectations. And if people have expectations, you've only got 3 possible things you can do. Exceed them, which is difficult to do, match them, which you bloody hope you do, or disappoint them, which you hope you never do.
Now, to people who don't have a lot of friends, this may sound great, a way to connect to lots of people very quickly, but remember there's a difference between showing a base level of civility and social grace towards someone and actual deep friendship with them. And people who aren't very socially adept often confuse someone being friendly with someone being their friend. And unfortunately, the online space features a larger percentage of socially awkward people than the general public, people who will latch onto any level of friendliness shown to them a little bit too strongly. And from a streamer point of view, you then have no idea who is a genuine safe person to allow into your life. I've known people get close to creators just to film or record them in private in the hopes they do something awful so they've got blackmail leverage. Or people who value the prestige of having a famous friend because it brings clout to them, instead of actually caring about the connection with that person. So if you stream and become successful, like any level of entertainment, people will suddenly like you, but you won't truly know if they like the persona that you're presenting, or the prestige of the connection, or the potential for personal gain that you now bring them. Because you as a streamer are presenting a persona as a product, and that is what most people who don't understand the job see as real 100% of the time. Remember, there are people who genuinely dislike the actor Jack Gleeson because of his portrayal of Joffrey on Game of Thrones. Now, it was an excellent acting performance, but people do struggle to separate the acting performance from the actor themselves. And with live streaming, while again you are not lying, you do not know which audience members are able to separate you as an actual real human being from you as the persona they have built up of you in their mind. Now, one of the most common ways to reduce the mental load of streaming is to co-stream or duo stream. Have a friend on your own stream, play games with friends, have them on voice chat. Twitch even has a collaborate feature where you can share live stream chats. And this is something I see newer streamers fall back on a lot, without realizing that Twitch is a performance, and bringing someone else onto your performance is risky. Much like bringing an untrained actor onto an improv theatre show, you don't know the quality that you're now adding. There are a lot of small streams which are just a group of mates playing together, and that's fun to do, but it's not always fun to watch, especially if you as an audience member aren't part of the friendship group. You're dealing with different microphone qualities, different senses of humor, different volumes, sometimes very little chemistry between the players as performers, and as a viewer, if you ever watched your favorite streamer try to collaborate with other streamers and the vibes just don't match, you don't know who's going to talk when, they don't play the same way, you know how much that can kill the energy of a stream. As fun as it can be to watch a large number of successful streamers play a game together, it can often descend into noisy chaos. And while some viewers love noisy chaos, it's not for everyone. So as a streamer, pick your co-hosts or duo streams very carefully. When the energy matches, like when I did a duo Borderlands stream with the comedian John Robertson, it can be an absolute treat. Or when the Albion Online streams had Nomad Poncho on voice chat helping me out. But these chemistries are rare. So if you're finding success in streaming and your mate who loves Among Us keeps saying, "Dude, we should play and stream us on voice chat together, it'd be so funny," consider if that's what your audience actually want, because it might not be funny for them.
One aspect people often overlook are the physical health effects of sitting and playing video games for a long time, and anyone that works in an office already knows this. You're spending hours, often daily, often for months at a time, staring at a screen that's very close to you, with stage lights shining in your eyes. For the first few weeks of doing this, I kept getting headaches, which progressed into migraines, and eventually I started getting rings of blurred vision in my eyes, which grew over time, and I couldn't read the text on the screen. And I realized it was from a ring light physically burning into my eyes, which is why I started streaming with sunglasses on. I had to go to an optician to check that I was okay. Thankfully, I was. But I had to ask myself, what do I value more? Being lit well or long-term eye health? Now, gaming chairs are popular. Hell, I've got one. It's a Warhammer one. It's cool, but it's not the kind of chair specifically designed for maximum comfort over a long period of time. You'll find this with a lot of the gaming or content creation aesthetic. What looks cool doesn't always serve the most practical purpose. Streaming then means you're inside, away from sunlight, not being super mobile, and often not drinking enough water. Now, these aren't new problems. Anyone who's worked in an office knows the detriments of a sedentary lifestyle, but one of the health factors streamers overlook often is nutrition, because gaming or geek culture glorifies certain unhealthy foods. So if you're streaming, you're embedded in streaming culture, and that glorifies chocolates, sweets, and snacks. Sam Wilder has a great video where he just eats content creator promoted food. It's pretty interesting. Go and buy some gamer subs, use code Josh for 10% off. In fact, that's a great segue to talk about money. So let's talk about money. One of the most common comments I kept seeing was, "Bros switched from YouTube to Twitch because it is easier and makes more money." And let me just dispel this myth in relation to me immediately, because No, it's not. And no, it doesn't. Now, different creators will have different processes. My streams, I try to keep really high energy, reading as many messages as I can, responding as much as I can, while still playing whatever game I am to what I hope is an acceptable level. This means I'm often talking non-stop for 5 to 8 hours while also trying to read the text in the game or react to whatever's happening. From a purely energy-given point of view, the hours spent streaming, at least for me, were much more mentally draining and physically straining on my voice than sitting and editing and making a YouTube video. And the income from 3.5 months of what I would consider very successful Twitch streams was similar to around 2 months of YouTube ad revenue alone, not counting sponsored videos. And that's not taking into account the passive income from older videos or the boosts that older videos get when you put a newer one out.
From a financial point of view, YouTube is also much safer to take breaks from and return to, because your previous videos keep earning money and keep being recommended even when you're not there, while on Twitch, you need to be there to generate the subs and the donations and the ad revenue. Now, we've heard the stories of the largest streamers in the world still making tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from recurring subscriptions when they aren't even streaming, but that's not the average experience. In this way, YouTube is closer to a salaried job which pays on results, while Twitch is closer to hourly, which pays on the process. I've often said to people, it's easier to make £10 on Twitch right now, but it's much easier to make 10,000 on YouTube in the long term. But interestingly, Twitch and live streaming are becoming more valuable to advertisers, flipping the historically YouTube prioritized balance on its head. But why? Well, it's because it's combining two things that advertisers really love: a modern standard of luxury and a more invested audience. So as a streamer, you are more valuable, but you need to understand the risks of both gaining and then extracting that value. First, the luxury thing. This is Rory Sutherland. He's an advertising executive and gives some fantastic talks on the nature of advertising and our relationship as people toward any level of a marketing campaign. I find what he talks about fascinating. And he spoke recently on the changing standards of the word luxury in modern society. Don't worry, this is going somewhere. Basically, what luxury is changes with the times. And luxury is often focused on rarity. Something is more luxurious the fewer people have it. The limitation is part of the experience. And historically, luxury was connected to material wealth and shows of excess because fewer people had access to that. Supercars, fancy dinners, lots of holidays to nice places, wearing lots of nice clothes. But that has changed because people can now just rent the supercar or the private jet for a photo shoot. They can hire the clothes, which means the optics of having those things simply isn't as rare. So what is becoming rarer is genuine human-to-human connection. How many times have you called up a customer support network and had to listen to a pre-recorded message or talk to an AI chatbot online before you get to a human? How many times have you been into a high street brick-and-mortar store or your bank and been told, "We can't help you with that, call the service line"? Well, with the increasing rise in automation and AI, human contact itself is becoming the luxury because of its increasing rarity. Twitch does that better than YouTube. You type a message, the streamer reads it, you get a response. In a world of more entertainment than you could possibly experience, the personal touch is the standout feature. It's the connection to the performer that itself is the luxury. Combine that with how YouTube advertising is seeing a bit of a downturn. If you have YouTube Premium and watch on your PC or TV, you can automatically just skip commonly skipped sections of a video, which are almost always the sponsored segment. Meaning companies are paying for a 30, 60 or 90-second ad spot, which are just being skipped through. And fully sponsored videos see lower than average view counts historically, due to most viewers not wanting to watch what they consider to be a full-length advert. But Twitch streams are there as background noise, and as long as the streamer is popular enough to have people watching them, they will be watched regardless. Daily viewers aren't going to turn their comfort background noise off just because the stream is now sponsored. Many of them even support them, saying, "Go and get that bag." So content creator agencies are seeing an increase in demand for Twitch streamers and reduced demand for YouTube sponsor segments. They're still there, It's just lower than it used to be. Combine this with how streamers often get access to new games before launch or codes to play those games on the day of, and you've got a load of players who will browse Twitch to watch gameplay, and if the streamer they like is playing a game they've heard about, the streamer happens to have an affiliate link, the viewer is more likely to then buy the game. If a YouTuber gets access to a game the day of release, it will still take them a few days to actually make a video, playing, scripting, editing, uploading. And in the content world, being first is more valuable than being right, which is why some of the earliest YouTube videos we get for any new game are full of mistakes. And yet, they will still get views. And people are beginning to realize this, which is why they're valuing watching a live experience over trusting the earliest YouTube videos.
So from a content creator's view, companies are going to send you access to the latest games and updates, which is going to get you the audience of early adopters and interested gamers. You're able to interact directly with them, which appeals to modern luxury standards, and you're more likely to make a sale than a YouTube sponsor spot, which are becoming increasingly easier to skip by the day. The danger, however, you become a marketing tool, and the audience can tell. Now, don't get me wrong, it can pay well, it can pay very well. Some of the larger streamers can make hundreds or even thousands of dollars per hour for a sponsored stream. If you do gambling streams, you can literally make in the millions. But every time you do, you're alienating part of your audience. So finding that balance of extracting the value you have as an entertainer from people willing to pay for it, and not losing the audience which give you the value to be extracted in the first place, that's a balancing skill.
Audience trust is a currency. Consider it in terms of MMO mechanics, generating a resource and then spending it on a big attack. Doing the thing which gains the audience trust, like being critical of games and showing your success and failures in a human way, is the builder. And the higher the trust, the more valuable you are as a marketing asset to any big company. And then taking the highly paying sponsorship to push a product to your audience is the spender. You just need to understand that every time you cash in your audience trust, make sure the payday is worth it, because it's going to get harder to regain that trust every time. And any sponsorships you take may stay in viral clips forever. And if you take too many sponsorships, you risk being seen, and I've seen this happen to both YouTubers and Twitch streamers over the years, as a content creator who only makes things when they are paid to make them, as opposed to making things that they genuinely care about, which means you will lose all your audience trust over the long term. Now, one thing that Twitch sucks at is archiving your work. It holds the complete stream VOD for about 3 months, but that's not exactly user-friendly to browse through a streamer's back catalogue of videos, and highlighted clips can last a bit longer, but again, it's not a user-friendly experience to click through a streamer's clips. That's why all of my complete stream VODs have been archived on the Josh Strife Replays YouTube channel. Now, many of you tell me that you want to catch up on the Twitch VODs, but it's easier to do this through the YouTube channel. The Josh Strife Says Clip channel is another example of how short-form content of live streams are best delivered to a wider audience through a non-live stream focused service. And that wider audience reach that these clips have generated matters because a lot of what happens on stream is an in-joke and it needs context, and these clips allow people to get that context without sitting through a 7-hour stream. But if you are there for the 7-hour stream, one of the most amazing things you can see is the birth of an in-joke, which sometimes spreads beyond the stream itself and becomes a meme. Take one example of The Loop. The Loop became one of the most popular in-jokes, and it went like this. This stream is basically a 30-minute loop. If you keep watching, you'll hear me tell the same stories and make the same jokes or same references and same mistakes again and again and again. Like that time I got tongue-tied and said choculent Chinese meal by mistake. Or instead of saying tank stance, I said hang on, now I'm trying to do it, I can't do it, I got it wrong. It was stank tants, that was the one, thank you. I started my World of Warcraft Classic journey as a warlock, and as a joke I added the water breathing ability to my hotbar multiple times. Then I tried a new class and people kept asking, where's the warlock? So I joked, oh, they drowned, in a reference to the water breathing spell. And that became the answer anytime anyone asked what happened to anything. And as we know, new viewers have the habit of asking the same question again and again and again, so the answer just kept being, to any question, no matter the context, oh, they drowned. These moments, like asking if ghosts are wet, or the load-bearing sock on the microphone, or the human jawtopede, not only become YouTube clips, they also become fan art. And if you realize the dumb jokes that you're making with your chat are becoming the culture and lore of both of you and the viewers and the stream as a whole, you're creating the ancient magics that others will quote at you in the future. And there is a beauty to being involved in that process. You see, those silly jokes and sayings you and your mates have, those you had to be there moments that you keep laughing about, or those jokes that need like 5 layers of reference understanding to even begin to make sense. Streams have those moments every day, and they are incredible at building up audience trust. They also cement the regular viewers as the keepers of the sacred knowledge because they understand it's a digital shibboleth which rewards those who are involved with deep comedy that you just won't get from a surface level joke. Now, those bonds are what help keep a community together, and you might be thinking, what the hell is a human jawtopede? But don't worry, it drowned. And as funny as the loop was to hear 6 or 7 times an hour, it does highlight a really interesting limitation of live streaming. People watch streamers who tell stories, and a lot of interesting stories come from life experience. If you think back to school, you'll probably remember some of the most interesting and engaging teachers that you had just had more life experience outside of the classroom than some of the newer teachers, and they can draw on that real life experience to engage the class in the lessons they're teaching. I find any entertainer, streamers specifically, are the same. Those who come into streaming after having lived interesting lives can bring those lives as stories into the stream. They say write what you know, and as I kept streaming, what I knew became more and more about the game, or the community of the game, or the viewers in the chat. What I knew became streaming, so my stories became less about my life and more about what happened to me in the game, or why my mechanical understanding of the game helped, and I started theory crafting, or talking about other streamers, and this is what creates that microcosm of streamer society. There's a common creative death spiral where a relatable artist starts by making work for the people they relate to, which has broad appeal, and then eventually, if they find success, they surround themselves with other successful artists, and then they start making art for those artists because that becomes what they know. If you've ever watched a film, read a book, or played a game and thought, these writers are so out of touch with general society and the real world, they're only speaking to those people in their tiny creative bubble, this is likely what happened. This leads to audience churn because eventually they've heard all of the non-streaming stories. So what do? Well, you either focus on the game alone, which reduces your audience to only people who care about the game, or talk about the stream, which reduces it to people who have already been into the stream, creating a smaller and smaller in-group. Or if you're not leaving your house, you read the news and then talk about that, simply because it's something new, an endless source of new stories. The only difference is it's not actually something you're experiencing personally, it's something that you're experiencing passively and just start reporting on. The alternative is the same joke again and again and again. The danger of this is because the audience demand new content and you have to comment on new things that you haven't experienced yourself, your opinion may be uninformed, biased, or straight up manipulated by whatever media you got the initial information from. But the allure of must make content is stronger than the ideology of must report responsibly. This ties back into the 5th pillar of streaming, confirmation bias and community belonging. If you run out of things to talk about, which if you stream long enough you will do, just talk about things people already agree with. But eventually even this can get repetitive and dull, so instead of thinking about world events you aren't involved in, what if you just create some that you are, such as drama with other streamers? That way you're tapping into the parasocial nature of the connection. And I've seen many streamers start to and then end up relying on creating drama just to keep the audience engaged. But this drama can be incredibly mentally taxing due to its frequency and intensity from people you don't know. And can you, as a streamer, become responsible for the behavior of your community? With full-time streaming, you're moving into a workspace where the audience have naturally filtered themselves through being on Twitch at all to the enfranchised player of a game or your invested fans. So you're dealing with more emotionally invested people from the get-go. And this leads to streamers and audiences doing what workers in most workplaces do, discussing workplace drama, because that's a constantly evolving source of new stories that everyone is at least somewhat involved in, viewer and performer. Except there are differences. Take a normal workplace where your co-workers are Doris from accounting, or Frank who only works the closing shift and never washes the dishes well enough, or Brian who spends half his shift playing phone games and gets away with it because he's the boss's mate. You're probably going to talk to your co-workers about how you think or feel about these people, but it's going to stay very, very localized to just the place that you work and just the shift that knows these people. But once you leave work, the drama kind of dies down. Sure, there might be a group chat you're in or a smaller one that you're not, but the fast food shop halfway across the country doesn't care about your internal staff relationship chart. Classic workplace drama tends to stay somewhat contained to the people directly involved in it. Kind of like high school drama. What happened in your high school is irrelevant to what happened in a high school in another country. And to everyone involved in the drama, the high school drama, the work drama, it is the most important thing in the world because they are the center of their own world and the world is revolving around the drama. But give it time and distance and it dies. A couple of weeks and no one cares anymore. A couple of miles and they never cared in the first place.
But with streaming, your workplace is the internet, and your co-workers are, to a degree, every other content creator in the world. And if you have a fan base, and they have a fan base, suddenly beef between you two as individuals isn't between you two as individuals. It's between both of your fan bases, your entire communities. Hundreds, thousands, in some cases millions of people that you have never met are suddenly emotionally invested in the interpersonal conflict of multiple people. Twitch becomes a soap opera which plays out in the real world. So a small disagreement can be mined for more conflict than it's really worth. I've had larger and smaller content creators react to videos of mine which are minutes to years old.
Put simply, Twitch culture can begin to feel like a massive dramatic high school. And you can't opt out of this either, because someone will make a react video about you, or mention you on another stream. And then the cross-pollination of viewer bases begins, and unlike real-world work drama, which tends not to break containment too easily, Twitch drama actively tries to. And then you'll be getting Instagram, Twitter, Discord, or just old-fashioned email messages from people who have never watched you or interacted with you in any way, letting you know how they feel about you because of hearsay and connected drama to a person they do watch. Anything you say can and will be quoted out of context, and anyone that you spend time with or talk favorably of becomes your team, even if you weren't trying to take sides. Everything you do becomes seen through the lens of both performer and character in this real-life play where all the world's a stage. If you are going to be streaming full-time as a job, this means you're not just navigating your own stream. You're also having to balance your reputation amongst other streamers, creators, or, if a moment goes viral, the general public. And if you are friends with or even connected to in a minute way someone which the audience decides are now cancelled, you are involved in this drama by proxy, not by choice. Now, I'm not saying you need to support your streaming colleagues even if they're awful people. You absolutely don't. I'm saying that you need to be aware that streaming brings workplace drama, office politics, and high school cliques into your everyday life. Your colleagues, your customers are global. And unfortunately, how do I put this nicely? You're going to be sharing a huge part of your life with socially maladjusted and emotionally invested people that see your life as a show they are now involving themselves with for fun, with a zeal for drama you cannot escape. You will become known for what goes viral, not necessarily what you do the most, because like a headline matters more than the article to most people who don't have time to read but still want to get emotionally invested in stuff, the quick and easy clip is viewed and shared more. If you have a good positive stream with 8 hours of laughs, good banter with the chat, game progress, some subscriptions, maybe a donation or two, and it ends on a positive note, that won't get clipped. It's too long. Too many positive moments don't give the audience anything to get riled up over. Positivity doesn't sell or grab or hold attention. Instead, it's the arguments with chatters, the mistakes, the emotional moments. They will get clipped because they will get watched more. Humans react to negativity far stronger than positivity. And that will become the persona that others know you as. The mental image of who you are gets built up from the most extreme things of what you do because they are the things that travel around the internet faster. I think overall the vast majority of stream time that I put out is relatively positive, but it's the negative bits which do well on YouTube. And people then comment saying every clip they see of me is negative. Therefore, I must be like that all the time, while most people in the stream are just asking if ghosts are wet and laughing at the silly Lalafels in silly little tanks. Unfortunately, streamers do know this, and discoverability, or being found if you're a new streamer, on Twitch is terrible. So having a clip go viral on YouTube or Instagram is probably the best advert you could ever have. Even if it brings hate watchers, they're still watching. This is why so many big streamers are happy to say controversial things, or get into drama, to argue, to be overly negative, to be extremely extreme or reactionary, because those are the moments which will get shared. They will galvanize whichever side empathizes with them the most, and the audience will then be brought in. And in the theatre world, we used to say all that matters is bums on seats. Doesn't matter why the audience is there. They can be watching genuinely or ironically. They can be watching with love or hate. Their reason for being there is irrelevant, only that they are. Now on Twitch, that's eyeballs on stream and people writing comments. It's a numbers game to some extent, and a viral clip is a golden ticket. I've had a lot of friends say to me, they really want to get into streaming, but they just want to be like chilled out and relaxed and never get into drama, really down to earth. And while I love the sentiment of wanting to do that, I'm sure there's probably an audience out there somewhere, you're then specifically streaming in a way which is designed to never create those emotional viral moments. And so you end up robbing yourself of a major marketing tool. It's a bit of a paradox that the audience say that they want something that's not dramatic, and then whenever they're given that, leave to go and watch stuff that is dramatic. When you stream, you are trying to entertain. And in the world of entertainment, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. So you can just focus on the game and ignore the drama, but even then your experience of a game is very different once you click Go Live.
Let's touch on one of the most fundamental things. Playing a game for fun on your own is different to streaming a game for content. One is for you, the other is for the audience. Now that's not me saying you can't have fun while streaming. Hopefully you absolutely will be. The audience can definitely tell, but you'll be having a different type of fun, a different experience of the game. And I find this change in experience comes from three major things: attention splitting, audience interaction within the game, and audience interaction outside of the game that is often about the game. So let's break those down.
First, attention splitting, or why Twitch streamers seem to suck at games despite literally playing them as a job. Put simply, you've got a limited amount of brain power, and focusing it all on one thing can make you kinda good at that thing over time. But when you start juggling 2 or 3 things, you can't give each one 100% of your focus, and each one suffers. When you do that, you are attention splitting. Now, playing a video game when you come home from a long day at work is designed to be a relaxing hobby. But when you are streaming, playing the game is only one of the things you're doing. You're also now reading the Twitch chat. You're reacting to it. And if you're playing with other people in the game, you're reacting to them as well. Many people think you can stream a game the same way you just casually sit and play one for your own enjoyment. And that's just not the case. Because when your job is to entertain, the game now becomes a tool, a framework that you can build entertainment around. When people find out I do Twitch streaming, they say, "Oh God, I wish I could just play games all day." And I tell them, you can, but it wouldn't be a very good stream. Because the moment that camera is focused on you and that microphone is in your face, you are psychologically experiencing that game from a different mindset than you would have if you were just lounging on the couch with no one watching. The game you are playing, the teammates you have if it's multiplayer, the chat, the discussions going on, your responses, donations, subscriptions, the software you're running to stream it, food and drink you have in real life, any contractual obligations you have to the stream or the sponsors, combine all of this and you'll realize streaming is a job that requires a specific skill set to be good at. And I'm not saying it's the most difficult job in the world. I know people are going to push back against this, but it is a job nonetheless.
And this means people will message you, I guarantee it, complaining that your gameplay isn't good enough because it's not your only focus, or your chat interaction isn't fast enough because it's not your only focus, or your teammates are getting annoyed because you're not focusing on them because they're not your only focus. And the truth is, all of these things do matter and they're all urgent, and you have to make the equation balance. Attention splitting will mean you might miss important aspects of game design, like walking past an obvious item because you're reading the chat to thank some donators. Or you'll miss a big donation in chat because you're focusing entirely on the game and make people feel bad because they've given money and you've not thanked them.
If you're attention splitting enough, you don't actually form memories the same way. Have you ever been doing 4 or 5 things at the same time throughout the day, and at the end of the day, you actually can't really remember any specific thing you did? Well, that happens with games. I played Oblivion for the first time ever on stream several years ago. The whole adventure streamed. I know I have finished Oblivion. I have the VOD to prove it, and yet I cannot actually remember playing Oblivion. I've got vague segments here and there, but the plot, locations, characters, quests, items, they didn't even form as a memory because my attention was split so much during those streams, I don't even know what I'm meant to have been remembering. So attention splitting will change your experience and memories of a game. Now, probably the most prominent in MMORPGs that will alter your experience of gaming while streaming streaming is audience interaction within the game itself. If you stream any multiplayer game, viewers will ask to play with you, whether that's a first-person shooter or an RPG or a real-time strategy. If people can get involved, they want to. If you stream an MMORPG, people will find you, and they will interact with you whether you want them to or not, and this will fundamentally change your experience of that game compared to a casual average player. Viewers will see you playing their favorite game, and they will want you to love it like they do, so they'll do something really paradoxical. They'll try to remove any hardship. Now, it's important to understand that overcoming adversity and challenge is a core human experience, and good game design is about challenge and friction. As the creator TheoryOS said, friction between the player and the game is a balance. Too much and nothing moves. Too little and nothing sticks. Long-time players had to overcome the friction of grinding for items, or grinding killing other players, or learning the mechanics, or killing bosses, maybe struggling to find groups, maybe getting lost within the game, and all those hardships become your memories. They are the friction that you overcome, and while they may have sucked in the moment, overcoming them was what created and cemented your connection to the game. When people watch you stream a game, they don't consider hardship or friction as something to be overcome. They worry it will be a quit moment for the streamer, and so they overcome it for you without realizing they're actually removing the design which made them fall in love with the game in the first place. Imagine, for example, that you really love Dark Souls and you watch your friend play Dark Souls for the first time, and instead of letting them struggle and die on the first boss, you just take the controller off them, finish the boss for them, and hand them the controller back, saying, "Well, wasn't that fun?" No, it wasn't. Now, people will give me any amount of in-game gold or items in MMOs. They'll trade me rare mounts, they'll teleport me around, they'll give me endgame gear, boosts, buffs, help. If they can, they'll kill enemies for me before they get close. I'll never struggle to find a dungeon group, and that is just, if I'm being honest, a vastly different experience to a normal player. Now, I can just refuse audience gifts and audience help, but often people giving the gifts or giving the help will see that as an insult. And I've had times where I've refused gold or items or mounts or help because I want to experience the game as it was, the way people tell me they have experienced it and am excited to see me experience it. And then I've actually had angry messages saying it's insulting to refuse the gifts or the help they want to give me. They've traveled all this way to give me a present. I need to team up with them because they've paid for the game or a subscription. They see the effort and the energy they have gone to as something that I absolutely need to accept. Because when you are streaming, you are not just streaming. You are the group leader, even if you don't want to be. And now you're managing people's emotions and expectations when they thrust those upon you. Now, this isn't all negative. Of course, there's a positive side. Playing a game with viewers can strengthen the community bond, or help ingratiate you into the game's overall community. Sometimes the developers of the game even take notice of big streamers and you become a part of the in-game lore, and there's definitely an advantage to being able to form groups for any content really quickly. Plus, it can lead to some really funny moments. It's not often you'll open a door to a Lalafell in a tank simply saying, "I have some demands." Viewers' comic timing can be absolutely golden, but the fact is, the moment you start streaming a game, then your gameplay experience isn't just yours anymore. Your gameplay is now a collaborative performance, and you may not want that bunny girl harem following you around, but you've got it, and you're going to have to learn to live with it. Doesn't matter whether it improves the game in the moment or takes you out of it. It is there. Streaming a game you have never played with an audience of people who have played it is similar to watching a film for the first time surrounded by hundreds or thousands of people who have seen that film telling you, "Pay attention, this is the good bit," for every single scene. And sometimes you have to say to all of them as a collective, "Just let me watch the film and experience it for myself." And only a few minutes later, someone will whisper, "Did you see what that character in the background did?" Because it was important you noticed to spoil the twist later. But what about streaming single-player games where people can't join you in-game? Well, that takes you to the third thing. They will let you know how they feel in chat. And now even reading the chat becomes an info hazard to both you and every other viewer that hasn't played the game. I have discovered viewers have this paradoxical relationship with watching someone play their favorite game for the first time. They are both incredibly envious that you get to have that pure, unfiltered experience, and also absolutely determined to make sure they ruin it for you by informing you of things that you would only know if you are an experienced player. Slight spoilers in this next section for Mass Effect, both plot and info hazard-wise. I'll leave a spoiler warning mark on the screen, and when that goes away, you can turn the sound back on. So mute the video now to avoid that. Right, if you're streaming a single-player game, the chat will do one of three things. Either straight up spoil the plot by telling you or asking questions which they know will lead you to discover things way before you should have discovered them. And people love doing this because they want to feel that they are telling you the story instead of letting the story tell itself. Or they will tell you information hazards about the game, such as how to get the best weapons and armor super early, or an overpowered build which you'd never find on your own and makes the game trivial. Or they'll constantly ask why you aren't playing the game the way they want you to play it.
For example, I'd never played Mass Effect before, so I decided to play it for the very first time on stream to an audience because they wanted to see my genuine reaction. And when Saren appeared, the first few messages in chat were all, "Oh, he's such a good bad guy. What a great final fight." And I didn't know he was a bad guy, so I got spoiled. When playing many other games, endless messages about why aren't you using insert whatever the viewer wants you to use. Why aren't you using this weapon? Why aren't you using this build? It got to a point where the first day of playing Mass Effect 3, I had to stop because I was absolutely inundated with messages critiquing my playthrough of the first two games and then people spoiling the plot because they weren't happy I let some characters die. Okay, spoilers are over now. Back to the video.
So when you stream full-time, understand you're splitting your attention between multiple things, and if players can interact with you in the game, they will, or they'll at least try to, and if they can't, they'll type chat messages, which will change the pacing and the mechanical experience of the game in a way that you can't unknow. But there's another issue you'll bump into pretty quickly, and that is how when a viewer finds you by playing a specific game, they will associate you with that game forever. Live streaming anything is stepping into the community of that thing. And remember, every game is someone's favourite game. But the fans of the game won't consider if it's viable for you as a streamer to make a full-time living only playing that game. They'll just want you to play it because they like it. So switching games can bring a level of safety with rotating viewer bases, but also annoy the fans of the niche game who discovered you, because they're going to think, I've finally found someone who will focus on the game I love. The viewership of World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV streams sits between 2,000 to 3,000 people on average, which is incredible, but that number drops substantially whenever I stream anything else, such as Albion Online, Rayman, Neverwinter, Armored Core, or Darkest Dungeon. And whenever I do stream anything that isn't World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV, the most common question I get in the chat is, when are you returning to World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV, and did you quit World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV? So as a streamer, you have to balance the viewer demand and the fan base wanting you to return to things. I know many people who will say, oh, don't mind what the audience say, I'll watch you regardless, just play whatever you like. And that's a lovely sentiment, but the numbers just don't back it up. And because Twitch is a numbers game, if your viewership starts dropping or stabilizes at a much lower number, your value to marketers or advertisers suddenly plummets. But maybe you find your game and you find your audience and you find your rhythm, and then 100 days and 500 hours later, the experiment ends. So what did I learn?
I learned the stream audience want vastly different things to the edited content audience. Even now, I'm doing sections like this for the visual variety, because YouTube demands it, while Twitch doesn't. I learned that live streams have filtered the viewers to only the most enfranchised with the game, or the people that enjoy you as an entertainer the most. And while it sounds impressive that 3 months of live streaming reached 400,000 people, a single YouTube video may do the same. I learned that performing in an emotionally honest and unguarded way is the fastest way to both genuine connection and mental burnout. I learned that some viewers make your day way better because they have better comic timing than you could ever have. And some make it way worse because they'll say things that ruin your day. And the teaching background came in far more useful than I thought it would, while the theatre background helped me keep the show moving along. But the big question is, should you live stream? It is physically isolating and mentally taxing and emotionally vulnerable, but it's also rewarding in both a performance way and a social and cultural way. Content creators are a cool job, and people think you're cool for doing it, but like any job, there are aspects of the work that you will only truly understand once you've done it. So go and do it. I will keep streaming and making videos for as long as I'm lucky enough to have an audience who likes the content that I create. But I also know that nothing lasts forever. And as a teacher, my most fundamental goal is to give people more skills than I have, so they can be better than I was. So if anything in this video has helped you start or continue a career in content creation, let me know, because it's cool to see the next generation coming up and making better content. For now, I have to go and play video games as a job, and I get to share that adventure with you, which, all things considered, makes me an extremely lucky guy. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep this channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and Discord. And as always, have a great day.